Welcome to the Love Letters to Our Bodies podcast. I'm your host, Gwendolyn Mitchell, founder and CEO of Moyo Institute and lifelong spiritual seeker and energy worker. Here for thoughtful conversations about health, healing, and happiness by, for, and about Black and African American women. Disclaimer, the Love Letters to Our Bodies podcast does not provide medical advice. The opinions, experiences, and insights shared are for informational purposes only. Nothing shared in this podcast is intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other healthcare provider. Don't disregard or delay seeking it because of what you've heard on this podcast. Thank you. Are you ready? Let's dive in. I'm Gwen Mitchell, host of the Love Letters to Our Bodies podcast. I'm happy to be here today with Valencia Balkcom, a nationally certified state licensed athletic trainer, a corrective exercise specialist and cancer exercise specialist with over 25 years of experience in sports medicine, also in injury prevention and wellness programming. She holds a master's degree in nutrition and food sciences from the University of Vermont and a Bachelor of Science in sports medicine from Wingate University. Valencia has provided athletic training and injury prevention services across diverse settings, from high school athletics and outpatient rehab clinics to occupational health and virtual wellness platforms. Her leadership roles have included outreach coordinator and plan of care coordinator at McLeod Sports Medicine, where she supervised staff and developed partnerships with healthcare providers and streamlined rehabilitation services. She also brings experience as an educator, having developed a comprehensive sports medicine curriculum at Wilson High School. In addition to her clinical and teaching work, Valencia holds multiple certifications, including basic life support instructor, cancer exercise specialist, and multiple group fitness formats such as Zumba and Les Mills. She's a committed advocate for holistic and preventative care and continues to serve both athletic and industrial populations through her work with virtual health and injury triage. She's also an active member of the National Athletic Trainers Association and regional affiliates in South Carolina and Georgia. Valencia, welcome.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad that you're here with us today. Valencia and I met when she attended the Love Letters to Our Bodies workshop last year. And it's just a pleasure to be able to now turn the table and look at what you're offering for people and how it's making a difference in the lives of so many folks. And you're in the Atlanta area?
Yes, I am now back in the Atlanta area, just a little over a year now.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So let's just start by having you explain to our listening audience what drew you to specialize in working with cancer patients and survivors. Was there a personal moment or experience that sparked this passion?
Yes, interestingly enough, the day before I got remarried, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I gave my then fiance an opportunity to back out. Did not. He said, I do. We did. And so I actually ended up in the Atlanta area, did majority of my treatment at Winship. Then because we were both in athletics and jobs and things like that, sometimes we tend to transition to other areas. We ended up in Kansas City, Missouri. That point is when I had an opportunity to participate in Love Letters to Our Bodies. And at that time I was in Missouri. And now I've come full circle back to Atlanta, to the place where this journey actually started in 2018. So very much being a person who's active all my life. I was probably that kid that should have been taking medications for ADD or ADHD. So constantly moving, that was just my continuous journey throughout. And through this journey, I also continue to move. And so I know how important being active really is, just in everyday life for people in general, but it's even more so important for those who are given some type of debilitating or a diagnosis that we obviously don't ever want to hear. So it's super important. And I thought it was important to add the expertise that I have by being an athletic trainer and being able to move, but also being a Zumba instructor and a Les Mills instructor, to incorporate all those things to help those who are cancer patients as well as survivors. So throughout my journey, I continue to move because I know how important it was. And so I want to help those in that journey as well.
Mm-hmm. Must have been pretty scary getting that diagnosis the day before you were scheduled to be married.
Because in all honesty, I didn't think, being in the healthcare field, we've always talk about health and we always do those things. We always do our checks. And so my mom and one of her sisters actually has a history of calcifications. So in my mind, I was like, oh, it's just kind of one of those things. That's more than likely what it would be. So I really actually minimized the possibility that it was actually breast cancer. My mom, baby sister actually had cancer, but even still, it was the last thing in my mind. So I did have a brief moment of insanity where I just completely cried and said, oh, no, 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 no. And at that time, my mom had walked in, so she had no idea what's going on. And I told her, I said, it's cancer. And so I have my daughter in the car with me because we were making an exchange, getting ready for wedding stuff. And so I freaked my daughter out a little bit, who's also special needs. And so trying to understand what's happening. So yeah, it was bomb drop. But after that brief moment, got myself together and said, okay, let's move forward. And that's how we've always just kind of functioned as a family, get the news, process, and then how do we go from here? And so that's essentially what we did.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. And I imagine that because you're in athletics and you have a background in that, you probably sort of felt a little bit immune from disease, right?
Absolutely. I think so, because as an athlete, as a healthcare provider, and somebody who's always, for the most part, been conscientious about health because of family history, my dad's mother was a diabetic. So we really looked at those things because they told us earlier on our potential for that was kind of high. But my mom changed our diets when we were in middle school just to, hey, whole grains, reducing sugars, So in my mind, yes, I think you really, as a healthcare provider and as somebody who's very active, you just really kind of put those things in the back. And that's essentially what I did.
I think it's also true for healers, for instance, because we work with energy and we're assisting other people, we sort of never think about the fact that it might happen to me or I might become my own client or my own patient. So I think that
Exactly.
mindset is very similar. And also
Exactly.
because you were young, that's the other part of it, that it just probably baffled you to think that I'm a healthy person, I eat properly, I'm a healthcare provider, I take care of my body physically. How can this be?
Absolutely correct.
Yeah, yeah, I understand. I understand. So let's get back to your certifications. You have a certification in athletic training
Mhm.
and Zumba instruction and nutrition. How do you combine those into a holistic approach for your clients?
Really, they really work so much hand in hand when you really just kind of think about. So, as an athletic trainer, we have different domains that we really work with, and athletes span the spectrums because we've watched athletic training really grow into different fields, not just being on the sideline of football or basketball, baseball, really in other in settings like the industrial setting. So, working with the industrial athlete. So, all of those things are nutrition, prevention, rehabilitation, all of those things we do naturally as athletic trainers in that field. And so, cancer isn't one that, as athletic trainers, we deal with a lot because a lot of times it's the age group that you're working with is usually young individuals. However, you may see that one in whatever chance of an athlete who may have an osteosarcoma or cancer of the bone or cancer within the muscle cells. You didn't really see that very often in athletics. You may see it here and there. However, again, all those tools and resources, they really go hand in hand. I can use Zumba as a means of just mentally kind of letting go, but also moving and dancing, getting into the rhythm and just giving yourself an opportunity to not think about it. And it's the same thing with Les Mills. But on the flip side, with those things, you're moving, and exercise is super important when you're talking about a patient who is a current patient and a survivor who's now gone through, and how do we continue moving forward? Because unfortunately, the statistics tell us that it's 84% of people who have had cancer who are survivors are inactive. And that's a high number of people who are inactive. But if we look at our country today, whether you have cancer or not, we have a lot of people who are inactive. And so I hate to hear somebody say, well, I'm going to die of something, so I might as well eat what I want, or I don't need to exercise. And I want to be able to change that narrative in people's mind. And especially because if you're sick, that you shouldn't move, you should rest. There are times that you can rest, but there are also times that you should really get out there and move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the way I understand it is movement helps the body function the way it was set up to function in terms of actually processing the food and getting rid of the waste and taking the toxins out of the system and all of that. So, yeah, very important.
And a lot of times too, relating those two things, sports medicine and cancer, exercise, or just even rehab itself, a prehab type of situation. I was actually speaking with my oncologist some years ago about, and I don't see this very often. I know they didn't do it with me prior to those surgeries. What types of exercises and things can be done based upon that patient's diagnosis, whether, if it's prostate cancer, breast cancer, or is it osteosarcoma? Based upon the diagnosis, what can we do prior to treatment? Because in sports medicine, when you prehab, the stronger you are going in, the stronger you are coming out. And so just taking that narrative from the athletic mindset and placing it into this avenue, it's really no difference. It's just that you have a different diagnosis. You have a cancer diagnosis versus an ACL or a rotator cuff. And so really trying to get those demographics to look at it in that manner versus, well, I just now need to move. And so,
I learned a new word today, prehab.
prehab, yes.
And I think that should be the name of this, prehab.
Yes. And it's super important. I think in years past, it wasn't anything that was really done, because when somebody was preparing for surgery, you just were told how the surgery is going to go, and then you plan for afterwards. But over the years, statistics have shown that the better you are going in, the stronger you are coming out. And I think it also helps the mindset prepare you for what you need to be able to do afterwards. Because when you go into something not knowing what it's going to be, or can I actually do this exercise, you at least have kind of a base to start with, to say, oh, you know what, I do recognize that exercise, so I can probably do this. It may not be the same as what it was before, but I at least have a starting point. And that's comforting for a lot of people too.
Yeah, beautiful. Walk us through how you design a personalized exercise program for someone who's just been diagnosed with cancer versus someone who's in active treatment or someone who is a survivor.
So each one of those can look so very differently. And even just in general, we're not cookbook. So everybody doesn't fall into just a simple plan. And so it just really kind of depends on what that patient or that client presents as. So if they are active, of course, everything goes back to what are the doctor's recommendations, because we really do work with other healthcare providers, whether it's, the oncologists, mental health professionals, or even physical therapists. What can we do to help, continue this plan of care? And so looking at that cancer patient where they are actively, it doesn't mean that they just need to walk. We can start there. Where are they mentally in this process? Are they in the signs of grief or denial or anger or bargaining? That all makes a difference too, because I'm one of these people, mind over matter. And it's funny because in college, if you don't mind, it doesn't matter. But the mind is so strong. And that's the first place that you really have to start with a lot of things. And so where's that person mentally, whether they're a survivor or they just found out, really makes a big difference too. And are they ready and willing to move forward? So somebody might say, okay, yeah, I'm ready for an exercise, but mentally they show you all the signs that they're not. So with that person, it just might mean, hey, let's just go for a walk around the block, just starting off real simple. For someone who's a survivor and we're already past all of the surgeries, if they've had surgeries, or is it radiation? What was their actual treatment plan encompass? Then at that point is what I would take a look at, if whether or not what types of exercises would be needed. What does their strength look like? What does their mobility look like? Was this a breast cancer survivor who can't really get their hand above their head? Is it because the muscles are atrophied? Is it because of chemo and the radiation has scarred down? So all of those things really go into play, but each person find out where they are kind of in the process. What does the doctor recommend? Can we actually do those things? And then if we can get past those points, then I do measurements based upon what their diagnosis is, and then just look at the body as a whole, because I'm also corrective exercise certified. And so looking at a person's as a whole, okay, wow, they're limping, but are they limping because their ankle hurts? Or are they limping because they have weakness in their hips? So all those things make such a huge difference.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, beautiful. You said something earlier about some people have this idea like I'm going to die anyway, I might as well eat what I want. And I was thinking about the fact that the thing that is not considered is, though, how much you're going to suffer between now and then, right? Because
Yes.
basically, having that attitude may, in fact, mean that you make choices that are going to intensify your suffering or prolong your suffering and cause you to be more dependent on others than you would ordinarily have to be. I think that's like a really important point that you just mentioned.
Yeah, and absolutely. Again, it goes into a mindset. So if I'm saying, hey, I'm going to die of something anyway, might as well, just gorge myself with food, those things play a huge factor in your recovery, because one, mentally, you've already in a way kind of checked out.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to be as willing or not as committed to the steps that you would need to do to progress, hopefully, in the right direction. So
Mm-hmm.
if I'm, say, 300 pounds, I want to lose weight, but I'm not doing those things that are necessary to do that, then that's going to be super hard. So if I'm a person who I'm in treatment, but I'm not willing to do the movement or reduce those things that can create those issues, then it's going to be hard. And so you're actually causing more of a detriment to yourself. And yeah, we're pretty much killing ourselves quickly by doing those things that we really shouldn't. I look at this body as a temple that God gave us, and I need to treat it in the best way possible so that I can be the best person possible. And then in being a mom, a wife, a sister, an auntie, I can't be those things if I'm not healthy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really great point. Are there other like big misconceptions that people have about exercise during cancer treatment?
I think one of the big ones is that people think you shouldn't really move during cancer. A lot of times we see how cancer and treatment really affects people. And I know growing up, majority of the time, usually when you hear somebody gets a cancer diagnosis, what's the first thing people do? Oh, I'm so sorry.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first thing when I talked to my mom and our family, we kept it to very minimal people, because I didn't want that, oh, bless her heart, or oh, the look of, oh, you're dying,
Mm-hmm.
because then I didn't want that in my mind.
Exactly.
And so people really, I think we just immediately, oh my gosh, well, I'll be praying for you, or like they're already dead.
Exactly.
And so I think a lot of times when you get that diagnosis, it's like, whoa. So when I actually was diagnosed, my treatment plan obviously looked very different from pretty much everyone else that I was in. I met a person who was doing her radiation first. I had a double mastectomy first. Then I had chemo, then I had radiation. So I'd met a few other people whose plan, even though I'm a healthcare provider, healthcare professional, and understand that things look different, in a personal manner, my mind didn't go there. And so to see see it in that way. I think a lot of times myth is that, okay, everyone's going to just die from it. Everybody's going to do chemo. Almost everybody probably do radiation. You really should rest. And then you're going to be sick all the time, and so I think the journey is so different now in those aspects, because probably traditionally, maybe 20, 30 years ago, maybe that was how it was. But I think that has still kind of carried over even into now. And with the numbers of treatments that are out there, not everybody is sick all the time. Not everybody is tired all the time. And so by grouping people into this cancer diagnosis, chemo, you're going to be tired all the time, is such a detriment to anyone who's diagnosed with cancer, the C word. We just kind of group everybody together. And I think for me, that's one of the biggest things, is that we've killed everybody
Exactly.
when they get the diagnosis. So
Exactly. So what year were you diagnosed?
2018.
2018. Okay. Yeah. It's been a good while.
It has, but it's crazy because it feels like it's not that long ago. Even though it was in 2018, I got to ring the bell January 2nd of 2019 of chemo. And then again, when I finished with radiation. So I'm still in the process of medication. I've got one more year. And then unfortunately, I had to add another medication because of osteoporosis because of medication. Because prior to this, I never took medicine.
Exactly.
I took vitamins, that was the most. And so even in that, there's a loss, which is crazy, which might sound really crazy, but because you go to treatment, you see them every week, you're in constant contact. And then when that's done, it's almost like, wait a minute. No. I should be doing, and so even in that aspect, you've again at a loss because you were diagnosed and now you're doing this whole different regimen and now you're being cut loose. And so it's to me, so it does feel like it wasn't that long ago, but it was.
Yeah, so interesting. That's a very, very interesting point. Like once the treatment is finished, now your whole schedule has changed. The people you're interacting with are no longer there for that particular part of the journey. And so you're left to figure out now, how do I reconstruct my days? How do I reconstruct my life? And is there a lot of support for folks doing that? Do you know?
I don't know if there's a lot of support in that aspect. It wasn't something that I spoke a lot about. So there are a lot of support groups out there, though. I didn't participate within support groups. Unfortunately, part of my time was through COVID. I actually just finished up my last surgery right as COVID was coming around. So I did have quite a few appointments still to go to, but my mom at that time didn't go with me because you had to mask up, you had to do everything. And so it was such a ghost town. And so even then it was really weird. So it felt kind of like you were unsupported then because you really couldn't talk with anybody, touch with anybody, face-to-face or interact with anybody. But I did my treatment at Emory Winship and I had an amazing oncologist. And so being connected within groups would have been easy enough to do through them. And they actually had a number of people who come through from different organizations volunteering. And so that was one thing I wanted to be able to do. And then, of course, like I said, COVID hit. And then after that, we moved. So there are opportunities for support groups out there. I didn't actually participate in those just because of how my circumstances happened. But I met a PT oncologist, which is how I became cancer exercise certified. And so in a way, that was support as well.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. The Love Letters to Our Bodies podcast is sponsored by Moyo Institute Incorporated, a nonprofit organization offering heart-centered educational experiences, and the Lloyd Symington Foundation, which supports visionary grassroots cancer programs. So, what does your initial evaluation process look like when you meet a new client? What health behaviors and risk factors are you particularly focused on?
So with a new client, just know, and with anyone, it's just really to get to know them. What are their goals? What do they do in the past? And what are their expectations? I know what I might think, but if the client has a totally different mindset and expectations, if we're not on board, it doesn't work. And so, what are their goals? What are their expectations? Really can drive and dictate what direction you really go. So, my first client that I had actually, when I was first got started, was in Missouri. And this particular client had found out he had cancer when a tumor ruptured in his spine. Mm-hmm. He was then paralyzed. So, I met him about 2.5 years after everything, because at one point he wasn't even walking. And so this is almost like biggest of like, oh my gosh, where do we start? And so I was ready, okay, this is what I think I can do, especially newly being certified in cancer exercise, even though I was certified many, many, many years for other things, really getting to know first where this client was mentally, because at that point they weren't quite ready for what was needed. And so getting that assessment first and foremost, just kind of see where they are, and some health questionnaires, definitely. And then clearance from the physician is the biggest one, making sure that they are okay physically to be able to do anything within the program, especially if they are the survivor. Now, if it's the active cancer client, then yes, again, what are we able to do? What is the doctor willing for them to be able to do? Of course, is based upon what their treatment at that time is. Are they in chemo? So do they have days where they're very down, fatigued? What's their regimen as far as the chemo? And then how those things can work together. Because like I said before, it could be just a matter of them walking. Mm-hmm. And if it was a person who's never exercised before, most likely that's where that journey is going to start, because they don't know what really working out really entails. And so most of the time, people's perception of exercise is looking at somebody in Gold's Gym or One Life Fitness or somewhere, and like, that concept of that's what I'm supposed to do. And really that's not it. So getting them comfortable first and foremost with what our plan is going to be after they have the okay from a physician, and then moving forward from there. Because a lot of times, if they're active cancer, we're guided by what the physician is going to allow us to do.
Mm-hmm. That's funny. It reminds me of recently, I got a little advertisement about a new place, Barbell. I'll just call Barbell Palace. That wasn't the name of it, but
sure.
And so I was thinking, that's just like 1 mile from my house. Maybe I should go there and see what their program is. And I walked in there, and it was literally all barbells.
All barbells.
And everyone looked at me like, what is this old person doing coming into this?
No.
studio, And it was like, there's like, I don't know, there might have been, it said we had like barbells and other equipment. So I thought, okay, they'll have the range of equipment that you find at like
sure.
24-hour fitness or something like that. But I turned around and walked right back out.
And it can be absolutely intimidating for someone who's never gone in and even been in a gym. So it could, by hearing that, okay, well, we're going to exercise.
Exactly.
So sometimes it's getting over that first hurdle. Let's just go for a walk, because that's a lot of times sometimes where you just got to kind of start, let's just walk, or I need you to walk this many days until the next time we get together. And then we're going to, bump it up to this, and then slowly, maybe incorporate those other things. Because again, it's the comfort of the client and what their needs are really dictates and determines. Because no matter how much I want to try to do with a person, it really is based upon what their needs are, what their expectation is, and where they actually are in that journey.
Yeah, interesting. Very, very good. So how do you help them honestly assess their current relationship with their body, especially when it's been maybe dramatically altered because of cancer?
It's hard for anybody just without having a diagnosis to be okay with our body. I worked with an eating disorder group in Vermont when I was there for grad school, and then I continued, called HOPE, Help Overcome Problem Eating. And so most of us have some type of body image dysmorphia. It may be the smallest thing. God, I need to pinch an inch here, or I need to get rid of this. And so first of all, just really getting us comfortable within our bodies, just it can be a hard personal journey. Even for me, I mean, I grew up doing gymnastics and dance. That was my athletic background from the age of 3 up until before college. So in those types of activities, you're being judged a lot of times based upon what you look like. And so it can be very hard just to accept yourself in general. And so really trying to get comfortable in that aspect, it takes a lot because if you, first of all, already are not comfortable, it just, again, takes a little bit more. And so just continuously working with, like little things, if muscle tone wasn't there and we're working and like, okay, look, this is transforming, you're doing great, but just continuously positive reinforcement. Now, if it's something that's really beyond me, and that's when we, talk about counseling, or is there something that their primary or oncologist can refer them to, especially for someone, if you like breast cancer, what does that look like before and after? I'm gonna be honest. There are some days for me, it's still like, not happy or satisfied. I had a double mastectomy. And so I wasn't large before, and I'm still not large now. And I actually kind of joked around like, hey, can you take a little bit of this fat from around my waist and stick it here? My plastic surgeon and my mom looked at me and they just kind of laughed, like, seriously? Like, do you see how thin you are? So even for me, it was a bit difficult to be comfortable. And I think in the United States, it's hard for us anyway. I grew up in the South. And when we talk about the Bible Belt and just kind of like where we are with sexuality and being comfortable in your skin and in your body, covering things up. And so trying to just let some of those things go to be a bit more comfortable and relaxed. And sometimes that just might mean walking around in your room butt naked.
Exactly. Exactly.
Just and by yourself. Because I've always said, like, I think it would be really neat to go to like a nude beach. But I don't know that I'd be bold enough to do that because I'm not super comfortable in my own skin sometimes in that regard. Like, because society really judges. We just have such an idea of what people should look like. And unfortunately, that plays a lot for everybody because, when we hear the word diet, everybody immediately thinks you're supposed to lose weight. And diet really means, what are you eating? And so trying to change the narrative in those aspects, like diet doesn't mean you're losing weight. Diet is what you're eating. And so a matter of changing the narrative, like what we should look like.
Well, it's interesting because the Love Letters to Our Bodies workshop really grew out of my experience with my sister, who was never able to come to terms with having breast reduction, not breast surgery, a mastectomy rather, and the unevenness in both sides of her chest. In the workshop, of course, you recall that we ask about, like, when was the first time you felt this way? Now, what was your image with your body like before the diagnosis? And like, how has that changed? Because you're right that we all have these, we're living in this society where we're being fed these unrealistic images of beauty all the time. And so we all have these issues where we think something is too big, something is too flat, something is blah, blah, blah. We're just not enough. And really changing that narrative to help people understand that I am enough. I am enough. And the way that I was created is the way I'm supposed to be. Now, I may be carrying excess weight because I have no movement or have very little movement, or I'm not really eating properly, or I'm eating foods that don't even agree with my blood type or like my body constitution. So there's stagnation. So there's so many areas that we can really work in terms of messaging to help people have a healthier relationship with the body.
For me, what has been a blessing has been my husband. And it was one of the things that, he said, he loves me for me. It wasn't about what I looked like. And so whether I had my breasts or not, it didn't really matter. Now, obviously, as a woman, you're like, okay, yeah, but I still want to look a certain way, but having him as a support and who continuously tells me how beautiful I am, and that, not just my body, but, my mind and just overall obviously helps a great deal. And so having, that support from someone who continues to encourage and feed that side of you is important as well. And not everybody has that as a support, or somebody who can say, wow, you look really great in that. Or one of my coworkers actually, who you can kind of tell they're not quite comfortable. And she and I are very similar diagnosis, everything, except her treatment plan was different from mine, but not necessarily as comfortable in the body. And so, everybody obviously handles it very differently, which is, how Love Letters came about, and how we can just really sit with ourselves and just look at, okay, I may not be perfect here, but you know what? God built me this way. And so, and that's something that's every day that you really have to tell yourself every single day, I am enough. God created me in this image, in his image. And, I just need to take care of my temple so that I can continuously to feel good, look good, feel good, look good. Those, all the slogans and terms and things that we say. And so my husband said, okay, when we was doing my expansions, he said, okay, I need you to put 600 cc's in there. And I'm like, you carry around 600 cc's, but, and joking, but even within that, it's like, hey, our expectations of what we want it to look like, and then the reality obviously are two very different things. But I continuously try to talk with myself about, hey, I am enough. And I'm thankful that I was able to get up this morning and I can move, or I'm teaching this class, or I'm helping this client, and that he tells me how much he loves me, and that I look good. And so, or that I look good in something. And so that obviously that helps too. And so being able to talk with each other about those things and encouraging each other.
Beautiful, beautiful. What about the managing cancer-related fatigue through movement? Are there strategies that you help people with in that area?
And it's interesting because, like I said before, we all have obviously a different journey, but having gone through the journey, it makes it a little bit easier and a little more plausible to say, okay, well, you know what, I can move because they did it. And so for me, my treatment was on Tuesday. So I knew Wednesday, for the most part, I was good. But then by Wednesday, Thursday, I knew about where physically wise I would be. But even when I kind of felt like I don't really want to move, hey, I know I need to at least try to move a little bit. So I would actually go into my garage and take my Zumba playlist, because I'm an instructor, and at least do 1 to 2 songs. And so for me, the goal was to at least do 1 song and then build it to 2. And so when I'm talking with clients, it's like, okay, what do you like to do? And then how can we incorporate that? Even if it just means you're sitting in the chair and you're marching, or you're sitting in a chair and you're just doing, arm presses, just so that you are moving and not just sitting stagnant. Because when you do that too, your brain sits and it really starts to work overtime. And I knew the first time I sat there and I didn't get up to move, I knew if I didn't start, I would be in trouble. And so trying to get clients and patients to find even a little bit of movement, get your favorite song, sing with it, and just even rock, just starting somewhere. Starting somewhere is the biggest part. And so you just got to start.
Beautiful, beautiful. So does exercise play a role in pain management? Does it help in any way?
Again, so if you've ever hit something and you've gotten a bruise, or you've got something that's swollen, and if you just keep it in a position and you never move it, things aren't going to move. It's going to stay stiff. And so in a way, the same thing with the muscles, use it or lose it. And so getting people to at least just, if you're walking to the mailbox, check the mailbox and back, getting that movement going. Because again, if you don't move, those muscles, they can atrophy. And then my whole goal too with the chemo was to move so I can push that poison out of my body. I wanted the muscles to work and just continue to move things out so that I can move on to the next thing, so that I can be stronger, so that I'm getting off of, the medication and things like that. And so by moving, again, use it or lose it. No matter how you're moving, just move.
Beautiful, beautiful. How do you address balance issues that might arise from treatments or from chemo?
So, and depending upon the person's diagnosis or their treatment, you can have neuropathies. So, those can cause balance issues, or they can even cause issues with grip and things like that. And so, depending upon the extent of the neuropathy, I'll have them just start basically, because majority of us brush our teeth or we're standing at a counter, just maybe leaning to the side, putting more weight on one foot to kind of work on that balance while you're got your hands on the counter as a means of balancing. And so using that as a starting point to progress to where hopefully one day we're standing on one foot, because when you walk, you transfer. And so starting off very simply, just at the counter or at the back of the kitchen table, the chair, just shifting from side to side. And depending upon how bad the neuropathy is in the feet will determine what they can actually do. So you can actually even exercise in a pool. And being in a pool, a lot of times for people, you have that buoyancy. It creates a little bit of resistance. And for some, it actually can create some security because, okay, if you sway a little bit, not too bad. Versus if I'm standing on land and I sway, the idea of falling and hitting something, a lot of times will stop people from wanting to do that. Or if I'm trying to exercise and my hands can't hold the weight, how can I create strength even though I can't hold a weight? I just find a different way of utilizing maybe bands or body weight to do different things. But then also using like hand putty or even playing with rubber bands or fidget spinner, just little things, normal different things. I liked popping the bubble wrap. You don't think about it in that way of it working your fingers, but it also helps in the way of your mind with maybe some anxiety. You're fidgeting, so you're concentrating on something different. So by doing those little things, you may also, with exercise, also can help with anxiety and depression.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned neuropathy, and in our most recent workshop, one of the women was saying that she had neuropathy in her feet, so she couldn't drive, and she's really looking for a solution. And I mentioned the fact that I had been experiencing swollen ankles, and I used the Earthing Harmony grounding mat, and it made a difference. And so another person piped up and said, I used the grounding mat also for my neuropathy, and it helped. So I thought it's so interesting because I just kind of found out about this ancillarily, looking for a solution for my own issue. And I told so many people about it, like within the first 2 weeks, till I thought, I should be like getting a commission. So we signed up to be an affiliate.
Oh, there you go.
And now we can give people like a discount when they buy them. But a really incredible system of having negative ions pass through your system to restore some balance and to get things moving. And it's really helpful.
And I would actually be interested in, because research and things like that, we tend to just look here instead of looking more holistically at other options. And I think sometimes people are a little, when you hear the word holistic, some people think strange, weird, quack, and really we were created, of the earth. And so we didn't have all those things, back then. And so being able to look at things holistically without all the contraptions or the medications, is such an important piece. And I would be interested in, I didn't have neuropathy in my feet, but I have it in my hands. And so that was one of the things for me in my treatment. It started in my hands. And as I was getting towards the end, I could feel it in my first few toes, But when I stopped, it stopped at my feet. However, it's still the hands. And so, and I'm standing all day now. I work in a pain clinic. And so, trying to adjust in those ways. But absolutely, I mean, being able to.
I'll send you a link because, it was just, I didn't know that question was going to come up in the workshop. And I didn't know someone had already used it. And in fact, 2 or 3 women went and bought one that night.
Oh, nice.
But I'm like, no, wait a minute. Let me get signed up first. And let me send you a link.
Then I'll send you, right?
So anyway, I'll make sure to share that with you.
Yes, that'd be great. And things like that, that's important. That helps mind, body, and spirit when you have alternatives.
Exactly. So what does loving your body look like for someone whose body may feel like it's betrayed them through illness?
Oh, it's that's even someone who hasn't been through illness. I think most of us just feel disconnected in a way because we are like, oh my gosh, I've put on a few pounds. And so how do I get back to that childlike love of myself, or my childlike that I didn't really care of what it looked like because I was so busy with gymnastics or dance or doing something else that the body dysmorphia didn't affect me. And again, it's just going back to really meditatively journaling, speaking with others, to try to hopefully, well, not just others, because some people can be toxic, someone who is in touch with themselves, or even counseling, to be able to get you on that track. And even seeing a therapist, we finally are at an age where the word therapist and therapy is not taboo. Mm-hmm. It's still in some circles, but it's so much in the forefront now. Now is the opportunity for us, especially as African Americans, to be okay with talking to someone about how we feel and what we look like is really important. So just being able to talk things out a lot of times helps us become more comfortable, be like, oh, you know what? I am actually okay. I'm not as bad as I thought I was, or I don't look as bad as I thought I was. Because even with me joking around about wanting to take the fat from here and put it here, I was serious. But at the same time, my mom and surgeon were like, are you looking at yourself? So sometimes it's reality checks because we can't see it. Mm-hmm. We see something different in the mirror versus what somebody else sees in us. And so that's where it's not a quick over the night thing. And I think sometimes that's where we get it wrong.
Yeah. And one of the things that I find really helpful is really focusing on those things that are working and really recognizing that whatever happened that caused the illness, there's so much of what's working properly. There's so much to be grateful for. And the fact that you still have a body. You're here to have a thought about it.
Right.
The fact that you can speak about it, you can listen, you can see, all these different things. And I think if we shift our focus sometimes to really relate to the body in the way of recognizing it as a gift and expressing gratitude for it. So.
One of the other things that I really did, and as you were saying that, it made me think about it when I was trying to determine, because like I said, I had a double mastectomy, and mine was not nipple sparing. And so I have straight lines across. And so for me, I wanted my journey to end a little bit differently versus just having 3D nipples tattooed. So as I was looking and researching to try to figure things out, I did a chest tattoo. So I have Phoenix Fitness and Wellness. And so I have a Phoenix. I work with a tattoo artist. She has a great foundation, and I was able to do the tattoo and incorporate the ribbon in it. But in that process, seeing so many other women and a few men who had mastectomies, reading their stories, seeing their journey, and how they turned it into something beautiful in a way of a love letter to their body by expressing it artistically, as opposed to just settling, okay, I'll just get 3D nipples. So the journey is also here. And that's how I wanted to change my narrative, to not feel like, okay, I went through this and then this, I have a beautiful story. And so here's my story artistically. And so that also gave me an opportunity to love myself a little bit better, to say, wow, you know what, look, God, there's just so many beautiful people who are going through this journey, who chose to look at it differently, and this is how they did it. Mm-hmm. And so that also helped me to really look better at myself and love my body better in a way, just by that expression. And so I have a chest tattoo that goes all the way across, and it's a phoenix rising. And so
I love that.
Yeah, it's a phoenix rising with the ribbon incorporated into the feathers and the tail, and it makes me happy about that. And so it gives me opportunity to just that much more say, you know what, I am okay, and my body is okay. You know, so maybe eventually one day I'll go to that nude beach and I'll be like, I am okay.
Exactly. I've reached out to a sister that I'm hoping to have on who is a tattoo artist, because I want to make sure that people know about that as well. And maybe afterwards, after we're done, 4 minutes, you can share with me a little bit about your tattoo artist as well.
Sure. Medical tattoo artist, not just any tattoo. So scars, somebody who can work with scars.
Exactly.
And that's how I was able to find her.
Beautiful, beautiful. So what would you want every newly diagnosed person to know about the role their body can play in their healing journey?
Take one day at a time. Your body, you might feel like it betrayed you when you get that diagnosis, but just take it one day at a time. And given what your treatment is going to be, again, one day at a time. And then as those battles come, there's going to be uncertainty, but again, one day at a time. And get a good support to help you go through it one day, one step at a time.
Beautiful. I think that's a good place to leave it. We want our listeners to know that we're so delighted that we were able to have you, Valencia Balkcom, and we'll make sure that how they can reach you if they want to be in touch will be in the show notes. And I look forward to having future conversations with you, because we only got to about
we can do part 2.
2/3 of my questions. I have more questions that I want to ask you, but we can do it another time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll do exercise part 2. We'll go from there.
Exactly. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
That's a wrap. Thank you so much for listening to Love Letters to Our Bodies, conversations on health, healing, and happiness. To find out more about the Love Letters to Our Bodies project, visit our website at moyoinstitute.org. That's MOYO Institute.org. Follow us on social media and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. If there are topics you'd like for us to discuss, let us know. Remember, your body is beautiful, girlfriend. Love it.